So I don't want to be extremely disrespectful to Mr. Jordan Peterson, particularly because I really enjoy a lot of the stuff he says. I like a lot of the stuff that he says. I think he's right on in a lot of things, and I think him standing up for genuine equality and against the double standards from the left in such an intelligent and rational way as he did on such a public stage as he did a few years ago was very, very important and very good, very, very positive for truth and against the totalitarianism that can stem from the cancel culture of the left. Okay. So again, I do respect Jordan Peterson, and I do have a lot of respect for the content that he puts out, and I have a lot of respect for his intelligence and his ability to dig into the core truth of an example. I have made videos on him in the past where I have sort of critiqued him, and there are things that I have critiques with Jordan Peterson against, and I think we all have flaws. We're all flawed. Unfortunately, when you have such a mainstream stage, your flaws can really be impactful. So one of the major flaws that I have with Jordan Peterson is his concept of sacrifice and the male family member or family leader, whatever you call it, needs to be a sacrificial figure. I have a problem with that because it plays into gynocentrism. It plays into male as utility. Okay, where men get used for our resources, we get used for what we bring to the table and not for who we really are. We do not get appreciated for who we really are. We get appreciated for what we can do for others, the providership, the lifestyle that we provide, the resources that we provide. So when Jordan Peterson says men need to be sacrificial in that context, I feel as if it's very negative and not positive for men themselves, who they are in their hearts and in their person. Okay. But again, a lot of what he says is really brilliant advice. A lot of what he says is very, how would I put it? It's crystallized a lot of what he does because he reads a great deal, obviously, and his information, the truths that he shares, is crystallized in the sense that it is concentrated and taken from different sources and compounded together, and he presents it in a very simple and intelligent way, which Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain something, explain a concept in simple terms, then you don't really understand that concept enough, which is a great quote. You need to be able to, if something is a complex concept, if you really understand it, you'll be able to distill that concept into simple terms to where people can, really understand what you're talking about. Very, very good quote, and a very, very good example of what Jordan Peterson often does. But again, there are some things that I disagree with him, and today I'm going to do another one. I'm gonna sort of critique Jordan Peterson again, and this is something that is probably very personal for Jordan, and I don't really mean to be offensive. I doubt he'll ever hear this, but I don't mean to be offensive to him. I mean this as a greater term. I mean this, or not term, but I mean this as a greater concept for all of us men, right? So Jordan Peterson, from face value, and I don't know his personal life. Everybody has dark secrets. Everybody has skeletons in their closet. Everybody has a dark side to them that we could, go into if we choose. Some people, a lot of people don't choose to go into that side. So on face value, Jordan Peterson seemingly is a very upstanding, moral, and righteous man. Just based on what he talks about, based on what I view his heart to be. He very much talks about, doing the right thing and things like that, which is necessary and needed in order to uphold society. When everybody casts restraint into the wind and everybody goes out and commits immorality, then our society will go to crap. And this is part of the reason why I'm very much against a lot of the immoral culture that is being pushed, in the mainstream. Because when a country or a civilization or a society, whatever, is no longer moral and no longer has ethical or wholesome standards, right? Then that country's in trouble. That society is in trouble. So what I'm going to critique Jordan on today is I shouldn't really even say that I'm going to critique Jordan, because this is really not necessarily a critique on Jordan. This is really just I'm posing a question, and the question is this: if Jordan Peterson's own daughter, okay, and I know this is personal for Jordan, so I don't mean to offend anybody, but let's call a spade a spade. Let's call the facts the facts. Jordan Peterson's own daughter is not really very moral, sexually. She has had a kid out of wedlock. She dates around. You can tell by the way she dresses and by the way she carries herself that she's probably one of these, I can do anything a man can do feminists, and one of these my body, my choice feminists who, are probably loose, promiscuously. Obviously, if she dates around, she's got a kid out of wedlock. I mean, that pretty much goes without saying. So if Jordan Peterson, somebody who's very upstanding, very upright, and somebody who preaches this type of behavior, is his own daughter, he can't even keep moral, how are you going to do it? How's the average Joe going to keep his daughter from, being corrupted by a society that is getting more and more immoral? What does that say about your chances of raising a quality daughter if one of the most seemingly outwardly upstanding, righteous, immoral people, or who preaches morality and righteousness, and good character and traditional values, and is adhering to traditional values, somebody like this, if he can't even keep his own daughter from being loose and messing around, how are you going to do it? A regular Joe, right? Somebody who probably hasn't even thought twice about, a lot of the things that Jordan talks about. How are you going to do it? Now, with that said, I will to some extent, give Jordan a break in the sense that he probably is constantly busy. He probably spends like up to, who knows, even 12 hours a day reading or studying or working. He is very, very busy. So somebody like that, now he does have a wife, and if he lives his life in a simple way where it's just him, his wife, and his daughter, and they're just, doing the basics of life, and they're not trying to go on vacations and like pursue the arts and get into all these hobbies and things like that. If they just live very basically and do their duty and really study and things like that, maybe it's not too bad. But I guess I could extend a little bit for him and say that, if he's really that intelligent, he spends that much time reading and working as a university professor at Harvard or wherever he works, I forget, Stanford, I forget where he worked at. I think it was Harvard or Princeton, one of those two. And he's been published, and he goes on lecture tours and all this stuff. It's probably pretty hard to really spend a lot of time with your family. So I will give him some leeway there, in that a lot of times girls who kind of go to the streets, so to speak, their parents, they really don't spend a lot of time with them, and there's not a lot of closeness going on in their family, so they seek that kind of love and pleasure in loose sexuality or whatever. And there are people who just have a proclivity towards being more sexually active and being more sexually outgoing. It's just for some reason in their genes. And then there's people on the opposite side of the spectrum. There's people who just don't desire it at all, and they're almost asexual, right? So he has some outs. He has some, maybe we can give him some leeway. But again, it's like, this man and his genes, his genetics are passed down to her, and she obviously didn't get any of his sentiments on, a lot of the negative things in life. So it's like, but there's always, if you study psychology, there's something called nature versus nurture. So maybe she did get his genes, and maybe she went to public school. Maybe they didn't put her in private school, because public school is just like a indoctrination camp for the devil, right? Jeez, public school can be brutal. Maybe she got, it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a thought. Maybe she got indoctrinated with some really negative stuff. I'm just trying to give him some leeway here. But again, the point that I'm trying to make is that somebody who is so righteous and somebody who is so upright, like Jordan Peterson, still can't raise a daughter that's moral. It's like weird. It's weird how that works. But then again, maybe it's the luck of the draw. Maybe it's for this reason or that reason. I do remember Jordan Peterson talking about he was a deviant in his younger days. He at least according to his definition of a deviant. Everybody's definition of that is different. But his definition of deviancy was he went out and drank, and I think he became an alcoholic at one point, and he had to. I think he says he's admitted that he has a proclivity towards addiction, which could pass down to his daughter, and her addiction could be sex. So, a lot of people do get caught up in sex addiction. It's a real thing. Of course, a lot of that's speculation. All I know is that she has a lot of thought tendencies, right? Again, when you got single moms, that screams she's a thought. It just, most of the time, that's what it is. Sometimes it's an accident. Sometimes it happens once. Sometimes it's, they get divorced and they become single moms that way, and they didn't plan on it, whatever. Of course, when is it ever planned when you're a single mom? That's never planned, usually. I mean, of course, actually, I shouldn't say that, because a lot of women out here really are trying to just be single moms, and that's a whole nother can of worms to open up. But I doubt it. I doubt most women are becoming single moms by choice. It's usually by accident, or happenstance, whatever, right? So that happened, and so I know she goes through boyfriends. I think in the last 2 years, I think I've seen her go through at least 3 guys. So that really is, if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So it really leads me to believe that she's out there, playing around in the streets or whatever, right? So, but the point, I'm not trying to chastise him or even chastise her necessarily. I'm really just trying to say, if he can't do it, what makes you think you can, right? What makes you think you can? And that's another thing that we have to understand in this day and age, in this world that we live in. Should we have kids? Do you really want to bring kids into this world? I made a video about this a few months back. Do you really want kids? Do it's like, idealistically, a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to get married and have kids, woo, 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 right? But, idealistically, but realistically, it's like, this is a pretty messed up world, man. There's a lot of negative things that can go on. Not only that, it's extremely hard endeavor to undertake, raising kids. It's a 24/7 job, really. And I guess you could look at it like it's not a job, it's a pleasure or whatever. It depends on your attitude, depends on your dynamic, depends on your personality a lot, which also plays into how the child will be raised. Some people just are great with kids and they just love it and it's just right in their element, and other people, they might have other reasons why they do it and they're really not that good at it. And it's something that you should consider. But I think we all grow up thinking like, oh yeah, I want to have kids and a family. It's kind of like this, most of us do. It's kind of like a human thing, it's almost like the American dream. It's like we all want it in a way, right? But the world's getting worse, and it's like it's getting more populated. We got all kinds of major, massive problems. It'd be tough anyways to raise kids, but there's no guarantee that your daughter's not going to grow up to be a complete thought. There's no guarantee that your son's not going to grow up to be maladjusted, a deviant, right? I guess Jordan Peterson did say he was, kind of a bad boy in his early 20s, and he eventually came out of it and realized, hey, what the heck am I doing? But that kind of proclivity is passed down a lot of times genetically. Even the Bible says the sins of the father are passed down to the sons, and I've experienced that myself in my life. I just have to admit. A lot of the reasons why I do certain things is because my parents did those things, and I realize it even as I'm doing those things, and it's like, man, it's a crazy thing. It's a really weird phenomenon, but and that's something that we all should take into account. What kind of life have we had? If you have a really nice life and you're doing well and you had a great childhood and things like that, you might want to have kids because you might be able to bring those kids into a great environment and live great lives. But how often does that happen? What's the percentage that your kids are going to grow up great and everything's going to be great and everything's going to be loving? It's like, I don't know, man, 30%. Like, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. That's just nature. That's just the nature of life. But again, if we live in this messed up society, if we live in this society that has a proclivity towards evil, I made a video back about the Jezebel spirit and porn culture, and like this is how our society is just getting more and more corrupt. And I think that still holds true. I think that we are headed that way. I don't think it's going to get any better. I don't know, but and I guess you could say it's all relative as well. It's all relative. But sure seems to me that things are getting a lot more immoral, and but again, if Jordan Peterson can't raise his daughter to be adjusted, in a sort of moral way and have a good upstanding character, like how well do you think you're gonna do, But anyway, I'll probably just end it there. Just want to say that, and I don't want to throw Jordan Peterson under the bus. I'm sure he's had his struggles and his personal addictions and things like that, and I think he's a great man for in his arena, in what he does. But maybe he wasn't able to spend a lot of time with her, whatever, right? It is what it is. But anyway, it's just something to think about, guys. Like I said, don't want to critique the guy in a negative, I don't want to throw dirt on his name or anything like that, but it's just something for us to think about in the red pill community. If we ever do find a quality woman, do we really want to bring kids into the world? Do we really want to do that? It's just something to think about. All right, appreciate you listening. It's been Jay Lee, Northwest Podcast. Peace.